The military, brownies, and Jesus. What do those three things have in common? Well, we're about to find out. Welcome to North Coast Church. My name is Trent Jenkins. Privileged to be able to be with you today as we head into another incredible week's message as we're rounding out this series in 2 Samuel on David. Well, the military are near and dear to our heart here at North Coast Church. We believe the men and women serving our country deserve the highest praise and honor. And one of those ways that we try to do that at North Coast Church is through our military ministry. We have a whole ministry serving the men and women and families that serve our country. This Thanksgiving, you have an opportunity to support this military ministry through the Turkey Trot. It's a fun run to be able to help support and raise funds for this ministry. Or if you're located somewhere around the country, you can always hop online, northcoastchurch.com, and support them through that fundraising effort, or you can register for the fun run as well. So I encourage you to support our military this Thanksgiving season. Now the brownies. So military, now brownies. Now I don't know about you, but I love a good brownie. A little vanilla ice cream, heated up. Oh man, those are delicious. Well, we're gonna have brownies with the Browns on this virtual welcome dessert event, and we encourage you to get registered for it. This is gonna be a virtual event versus being in person, but here's some clips of them at our Vista campus. They love interacting with the people that make up North Coast Church, and they wanna be able to interact with you too, regardless of where you're at in this country. So we encourage you to get registered for this event. It's going to be an opportunity to be able to hear from them and also get some questions answered that you might have about North Coast Church. Simply go to our website, northcoastchurch.com, and go to the online campus page to be able to register. And lastly, the third thing that's important for us today is Jesus. He should always be the most important thing to us, but we really believe that Jesus is our hope, and we look forward to having you hear this message this week as we get infused with some more hope of what he can do and how he can impact our lives, and hopefully we can make an impact for him as well. To get ready for the message, simply go to our website or use our North Coast Church app, download the message notes, put in your prayer request, or fill out your communication card. You can also give online as well to be able to help support the ministries of North Coast Church. As always, you can always text in that prayer request to this phone number right here on your screen as well. And lastly, to get prepared, we just really encourage you to dive into this time of worship. It's a chance for us to be able to give praise to Jesus for who he is, what he's done, and what he will do. So we encourage you, get your hearts and minds ready, and then let's go to today's teaching.
There is a King who is with us. He welcomes the sinner with grace. There is no distance between us. He made a way. And let every knee bow before him. Let every heart sing his praise. There is a hope that is Jesus. He is the way. The cross before and the world behind. No turning back, 'cause we're satisfied. Our hope is in Jesus for all of our days, 'cause our God has made a way. Jesus is moving among us, redeeming the past for his name. I know that my God's not done working. He'll make a way. Whoa, the cross before and the world behind. No turning back, 'cause we're satisfied. Our hope is in Jesus for all of our days, 'cause our God has made a way. The miracle maker has made a way. Spoke to the darkness and silenced my shame. The King of the heavens is calling my name. How could I not sing your praise? The miracle was my shame. The King of the heavens is calling my name. How could I not see your face? Oh, the cross before and the world behind. No turning back, 'cause we're satisfied. Our hope is in Jesus for all of my days. 'Cause our God has made a way. 'Cause our God has made a way. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder and show me who you are, and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation, and I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken.
So it may not surprise you, but I grew up in a home where there was a lot of laughter, a lot of fun, a lot of making fun of each other. Sarcasm is sort of the family love language, and that involved a lot of game nights. My family, quite frequently, in fact, looking back in memories, it wasn't an odd occasion, but it was a regular occasion where we would be sitting at the table and playing some sort of board game, or my brothers would be making up some sort of game that we would all sit around and play. Because of that, then, there were pieces of games all over the house, from little kids leaving them someplace to us flipping boards over to someone getting upset and dumping a board over, and you would do your best to put things away, but there would always be just random pieces left. And I don't know how it worked in your home, if you were a game family or not, but we always had one big closet that was just stacked with games. And in that closet was a couple Ziploc bags that just held random pieces of games. So when you find a red hotel for Monopoly, or you find a game piece, or you find a little circle or some sort of like little sorry figure, you didn't quite know where it went, and you didn't have time to look through all the boxes. You just threw it in the Ziploc bag. And in the Ziploc bag in our house, there was always pieces like this too. We were a big puzzle family. This is about the size I ended at. You give me a 30-piece puzzle about this size, I'm good. And in that, you'd always have to put away the puzzles. But you and I both know how puzzles work. We know how to do this. Like right now, you're seeing this and immediately you're thinking, an octopus. Right. Or maybe not, because right now I have no idea what this is, except when it came to do puzzles, we would always set up the picture. And you would always have the picture set up. That way you would grab a little pink thing like this and realize, oh, this is part of the octopus. I would have another puzzle piece with just 2 eyeballs on it, and I would realize, oh, that's going to be part of the dolphin and part of the little yellow fish. You would always look for the outside borders first, the flat pieces, and you would start putting that together. But you always had that picture in mind. The problem with this is, when we went to Grandma Brown's house, in Grandma Brown's game closet, her puzzles were in Ziploc bags without the pictures. Just Ziploc bags. So you would dump out the puzzle pieces and just stare at this. And you'd have nothing to go on, nothing to know what it connects to. You would just stare at this. So you start finding light colors and start putting them together. Get all the pinks over here, all the blues over here, all the greens over here. But the problem with Grandma Brown's house was we were the only grandkids.
So when it was time for us to put away toys, because she would always make us hot dogs for lunch, I love that. And it was always Oscar Mayer hot dogs. That was a treat for us because we had poor, like, imitation chicken hot dogs in our house when we grew up. But Grandma had Oscar Mayer hot dogs, and man, they tasted so much better. And we would just grab all the puzzle pieces and put them all together. So not only did we not have a picture, we had many different puzzles in the same bag. So doing a puzzle at Grandma Brown's house was tricky, to say the least, and usually more often frustrating. And that's why we just kept throwing them back in the Ziploc bag. And I think that is the picture, pun intended, of what you and I are trying to do today. What you and I are trying to do today is come up with, what is life about? What are we supposed to do? Where do I find fulfillment? What am I here for? Where do I find joy? And what we do is we go through life and we just start grabbing pictures. We start grabbing things, likes, passions, jobs, careers, education, and we see if they stick. And we see if they fit together. And we're trying to figure out, where do I find where I fit in? And anyone that's ever done a puzzle will tell you, well, you got to put the picture up first. Otherwise, there's no way in the world you know this is an octopus, because this doesn't look like an octopus. You see where I'm going with this? Legos, when I grew up, we had square Legos and rectangle Legos. I don't ever remember instructions with Legos. I don't know if because 40 years ago they didn't come with instructions. They were just a bunch of little bricks and you could build what you wanted. Today, they're all spaceships. They're all vehicles. Every little piece has some 500-page instruction pamphlet that goes with it. And if you lose those instructions, you're never putting together that again. Or worse, when your kids put all their Legos together and they put them all in the same box. Now you've got 7 different vehicles all in the same box. And oh my Lord, you're never putting that way together the way that the instructions were intended for it to be. Have you ever gone out to eat with your kids and they get the little kids menu and they have the little maze? And little kids always put their little pencil on the start, or their crayon, because you don't give them pencils, and they try to get their way through the maze. And it's a great way to kill time at a restaurant. Somewhere maturity, and maze maturity, happens around the age of, 7, 8, 9. Every time you turn your kids' menu over, you always start where? You start at the end and you work backwards. It's a much better way to do a maze. All of these illustrations are simply screaming out the exact same thing. When you and I are trying to figure out, what is my relationship about? What is my life about? Where do I find worth? Where do I find value? Where do I find significance? We have to start with the end in mind. If we don't start with the picture in mind, what in the world are we doing? We're grabbing pieces from all different parts of life, things that we think work for us, or I think this is best for me, or I think this would connect with me, and we're trying to stick it together to come up with what? We don't know. Today we get this beautiful picture. We get the life of David. We get his very last words. Now, they're not the last words David will speak. They're his last poem. They're his last psalm. This is the last time he is going to write. And David, at the end of his life, gives us famous last words, that end picture in mind. So you and I today can sit here and go, maybe that's what I'm supposed to be building toward. Maybe that's where I find my value, my worth, my purpose, my significance in life. Wouldn't you love to know, why am I here? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to do it? That's what the journey today is going to do. We're going to look at the picture. So whatever pieces you feel like you're holding on in life right now, you know which ones to keep and which ones to discard, because they're not part of this picture. And you know how they fit in. And great news, North Coast. You realize that the season you have in your hand right now is just a small piece of a great mosaic of what God wants to do in your life. Wherever you are today is not the end picture. It's not the end result. You're just a small piece of a much bigger picture of something that's going on. So with that, I know I've set this up. I took 6 minutes. We're jumping into 2 Samuel chapter 23. It's only 7 verses. 2 Samuel chapter 23. By the way, wasn't my buddy Ricky Jenkins just phenomenal last weekend for us? Wow, at our men's retreat, we had such a great time with all the guys. Our weekend services, I love that dude. I love April. I love his 3 kids. It was so good to hang out with him for 3 days. And man, did he bless our church. And I'm so sorry you're back to me this weekend. Here we are, 2 Samuel chapter 23, verse 1. It reads like this. This is the inspired utterances of David, underline this, son of Jesse. The utterance of the man, underline this, exalted by the Most High, the man, underline, anointed by the God of Jacob, and the hero of Israel's songs. And that last phrase is a little weird. Is it the hero of Israel's songs? We always know, and we've said it this entire series, David is not the hero of this, nor does he see himself the hero. There's a Hebrew phrase here that's been written about 4 or 5 different ways. What's wrapped up in here is this is the sweet writer. This is the hero who gets to write. This is the psalmist. We do know it says that. He ends with, and I'm the guy that gets to write these psalms. See, the Spirit of the Lord spoke through me. His word was on my tongue. Catch what David does here. Where does he start? Famous last words. Now he's got the end picture. Now he's looking back over 40 years of being king in Israel, the 30 years before that. So 70 years of life. This old man is now looking back saying, let me tell you my last psalm, my last writing. Here's how I sum it up. Number 1, I'm just the son of a farmer. I'm just the son of Jesse. Remember way back when we started this series? He's Ocho. He's number 8 out of 8 boys. You want to know who I am? I'm a guy who should not be in the Bible. I'm a guy who should not be used. I'm the least of the least. I'm the most insignificant role, bit character ever in this story. I'll tell you where my story starts. I'm just the son of Jesse. I'm just the son of a humble peasant farmer. But let me tell you what else I am, and I had you underline it. I'm a man raised up on high. I'm exalted by God. Whatever I stand on, whatever I do, whatever I have in life, let me tell you, it's God that did it. It's God who lifted me up. David doesn't write, hey, I was a poor farmer, but I built something out of myself. I saw my shot and I took it. I stepped out in the field and I slayed me some giants. I picked up an instrument and I began to be really, really good at it. I had the #1 hit record and it went platinum in all of Israel. Let me tell you, I didn't stop then. I decided to further my career. I saw some ways to get ahead in the military and I became a general. Once I started routing the enemy, I realized there's a political campaign for me. And so I ran for king and I got the office of king by chasing away the other guy, Saul, who was, no, David doesn't write any of that. When David's at the end of his life and he looks back, the one thing he can clearly see is, let me tell you what God did. He's the one that exalted me. And then the next line, I was anointed by the God of Jacob. Everything I have and I've been given in life is simply a blessing from God. It's something that God anointed. It's something that God poured out on my life. When I look back on my deathbed, I realize I can't take any credit for anything good that's happened. And yes, I'm the sweet writer of the Psalms. But even then, he points out in verse 2, it was the Spirit of the Lord that spoke through me. His word was on my tongue. David gets to the end of his life and he says, I'm 1 part Jesse, 3 parts God. I was born from a peasant, humble farming family. And let me tell you what God did. Man, what a way to look back at life. It's important to paint this picture that we're going through in these just 7 verses, because you and I are going to come around at the end of this and go, how do we see our picture in our life? And then he says this in verse 3. The God of Israel spoke. The rock of Israel said to me, when one rules over people in righteousness, when he rules in the fear of God, he is like the light of the morning at sunrise. On a cloudless morning, like the brightness after rain that brings grass from the earth. Okay, now remember, church, we're talking about an agrarian society. We're talking about a farming community. And David goes, let me tell you what the whole point of this was. Let me tell you what God had spoke to me, the thing that I know clearly about my life. When you rule with justice. You rule with righteousness. You rule with the fear of God. Now, right now, we're going to start turning this off because we're going to go, well, I'm not a king. I'm not a queen. Where am I going to rule? Rule is wherever your sphere of influence, wherever you have a sphere of influence. You're a stay-at-home dad, a stay-at-home mom over what, 2 kids? That's where you rule. That's your sphere of influence. What is your cubicle? What is your office? Who are the employees you work with? Your employers that you work with. That is your sphere of influence. What David's saying is, now let's talk about my vocation. Let me tell you who I am. I was born in a humble circumstance, but it was God, God, God. So let me tell you how I did my job. I did it with righteousness and justice. I was doing the right thing at the right time in the fear of the Lord. What's the fear of God? A trembling every day that if I screw up, he's going to lightning bolt me? No, that's not our Father. He said this understanding of doing our job with the fear of the Lord is doing it and just realizing that I'm going to give account one day. I'm going to give account one day. I've said it many times before at North Coast, but most of us Christians, our major problem once we've given our life to God is it's a pronoun issue. We see our life as ours. My stuff is my stuff. It's mine, where it's all supposed to be His. He allows us to manage every good gift that He has given us. I'm not talking just about our personality and our gifts and our talents, everything we have. Everything in a bank account, everything that I have to work, the people I work with, God goes, now it's my life. Chris, it's my life in you, and I've given you. You manage it for me and my kingdom. The problem with our life is we think it's our life. And David goes, let me tell you, at the end of this, I'm not writing about being a giant slayer. I'm not writing about being a king that brought all 12 tribes together for 40 years. I'm not writing about the greatness I did. I'm not writing about how I got rid of the Philistines, how I led us in a time of peace that was unprecedented. He goes, let me tell you what God did, what God did, what God did. And with that perspective, everything He gave me was His. I was supposed to rule, reign, manage whatever He gave me with justice and righteousness, realizing one day I would have to give account to Him. One day you and I are going to stand in front of God, and God's going to go, what did you do with the finances I gave you? And our response can't be, you didn't give me any finances. I worked my butt off for the 15th and the 30th. I think that day in heaven when we realize I am 1 part born of Bill and Jenny Brown, and I'm 3 parts, whatever God has decided to give me, put me, and allow me to do in life. And God says, so daily, you live your life with the fear of God and acknowledgement and understanding that I need to give account to God. What did I do with my life today? I'm managing His stuff, not my stuff. And then he paints this beautiful picture. He goes, isn't that type of rule and reign like the light, the morning at sunrise on a cloudless morning, like the brightness after the rain that brings grass from the earth? Again, talking to an agrarian, a farming, a shepherding community, he goes, man, that's the picture you want to see, don't you? You don't want to wake up in the morning and see dark, tumultuous clouds. Oh, it's going to wreak havoc on your workday and on your fields, your crops, probably your livestock, send them running in all kinds of different directions. He goes, you want to wake up and you want to see that beautiful sunrise on a cloudless morning. You want to see just enough rain to give water to the crops and water to the herds. He's painting a picture here in a farming community of, man, this is what you want. This is perfection. We live in a day and age where still our country, our culture is crying out for this type of reign. R-E-I-G-N, this type of reign. For people to rule with justice and righteousness and with the fear of God in their hearts and their lives. It is so absent from America today. Man, I'm wearing this shirt for a reason today. I love our military connection. I love the military ministry here that works with hundreds of North Coast families that are in the military. And we're coming up on Veterans Day this week. Let me be one of the first to simply say, for all of you men and women that have served in any of our branches, any of our armed forces, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. For the spouses of anyone that has served, thank you for your sacrifices and for what you've given in this life as well. For the children of anyone whose mom and dad serves in the military, to you kids or you grew up in that home, thank you. Thank you for knowing that every 2 to 4 years you're going to be leaving school. Thank you knowing that you're going to swap friends. Thank you for knowing that you're going to wait until someone tells you where you're going to live, what country you're going to live in, because your mom and dad served. To the men and women and the families that have given up so much in sacrifice to make this country and this nation what it is, thank you for your service. In most heartfelt, deepest way, for the protection and the freedom that my family gets to live in every day. And it comes at the backs and the responsibility of you. With that, may I also add, with that freedom, we also have this week, ironically, with Veterans Day, a chance to vote once again. We say this every 2 and every 4 years. Oh, Christian, may you use that freedom wisely. May we prayerfully consider now the men and women that are supposed to be ruling and reigning in justice, righteousness, and with the fear of God. Good luck finding that on the ballot. But may we still prayerfully consider, God, who are the people that are going to be making legal decisions for us? Who are the people that are going to be making political decisions for us? May we be people that read, in this day and age, especially this week, the propositions we have that deal so much with morality nowadays. I know we live in California. I know sometimes on the way home from work, you already see some polling and you go, look, a Christian voice in California, does it count? People, let me tell you, it counts. If for no other reason, it counts for you to manage the gifts and the freedom that God has given us to say, you've given me a freedom to use my voice. Most people in the world don't. I'm going to use mine. And before I walk into that polling center, God, I'm going to read and I'm going to prayerfully consider, what do these things mean when it comes to your word and us as Christians? We've got propositions that now want to get rid of any age on abortion. We want propositions right now that say, hey, we can end lives and terminate lives until the day they're actually born. And this is America. We have propositions that are dealing with gambling right now and various different issues. We have propositions that are going to affect your kids and my kids, or the lack of kids we're going to have in society. And so, yes, for the great men and women on this Veterans Day that have given us this freedom, I want to urge every one of us, don't just go, there's no use voting in California, we're moving to Tennessee with everyone else. I don't care if you realize I'm a 20% underdog on this. May you go and prayerfully consider, may you read, and may you ask the Holy Spirit, what do you want Christ followers to do in a day and age like this? What box do I check in a day and age like this? And may we not be silent. I'm not a doomsday guy. I don't believe we're going to change a state or a country back to being righteous and God-fearing. I believe we're going to be part of a powerful remnant, more powerful than we've ever seen in the United States. Where Christian and American were synonyms. That day and age is long gone. And I think there is a remnant of God's church that is going to be more powerful in this dark culture, in this dark world, a brighter light than ever before. And we're going to be about the gospel, and we are going to be about life change. And I'm still making sure I'm going to go into that booth in that cardboard box, and I'm going to vote and say, Lord, if you've let other men and women lay down their lives for me to have this freedom, I'll take that freedom serious. And if you put on my life that I'm a Christ follower, I serve a new kingdom. I have a new citizenship. I am not American. I'm a child of God. And that is first and foremost in my life. Then, God, I'm going to look at these ballots, and I'm going to look at these propositions, and I'm going to ask myself, what do you want a child of God to do using your voice, your light in this day and age? North Coast, I know it's tough in California. Sometimes we throw up our hands and go, on this state, it doesn't really matter. All that matters is that you take the freedom that men and women have laid down for you to have, and you take the privilege of being a child of God and letting your voice be heard. And we let our voice be heard this week. And at the end of the day, I can rest and go, God, I did that. And God, may you use us, and may you use this church in a state like California, in a place like Southern California, that doesn't resemble you or your word and your heart at all. And may you use us to love people so deeply, so passionately, that they can't resist asking why and finding out why. And in the midst of that, may we be able to write our final picture and say, let me tell you, it's about what God is doing, what God is doing, and what God is doing. And it is a beautiful picture that you want to be a part of. You're looking for rain. You're looking for fruit. You're looking for harvest. You're looking for significance. You're looking for purpose. It's not found in culture. It's found in the Word of God that's going to bring to light the Son of God. And that's what we got to be about. And David, after 40 years of reigning, says, this is going to be my final oracle, my final psalm, my final testament. In verse 5, he once again comes back to what God is doing in this for my salvation, your salvation, for the salvation of our land, our country, our culture. He goes, if my house were not right with God, surely he would have not made with me an everlasting covenant, arranged and secured in every part. Surely he would not bring to fruition my salvation and grant me my every desire. I love the way David says, look, in spite of who I am, let me tell you what this whole thing is about. It's God's plan. It's a secure plan. It's an everlasting plan, and it's about salvation. Let me tell you what this whole thing is about. It is God's plan, God's desire for salvation for everyone. Now, David's not saying that my house was pure, my house was accurate, my house has forever been awesome. But we've got 2 books of the Bible that have drug all the sins of David out in the light so we can see and learn from. What David's saying is, the greatest desire of my heart was to be with God. Man, did I blow it big time. And when I sinned big time, it was my desire to get back with God that brought me back to the writing of these Psalms, 73 Psalms written by David's hand. And even then he goes, give God the credit for bringing my heart back to him. And because of that, the promise that God made through my family to bring salvation. But, verse 6, evil men are all to be cast aside like thorns, which are not gathered with the hand. Whomever touches thorns uses a tool of iron or the shaft of his spear, and they are burned up wherever they lie. He goes, let me tell you something. The perfect kingdom, the perfect ruler, rules in justice and righteousness and a fear of God. And no matter how desiring that is for all of us to have and to yearn for and to want, he goes, let me tell you, many people aren't going to buy it. Many people are going to turn their backs on it. Many people are going to vote differently. Many people are going to say, I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be under a rule and a reign of anybody. I want my personal freedoms. I want to follow my own desires. And David, at the end of this last psalm, lays out 2 paths for us. Let me tell you where the person of God has got to set their secure, eternal desire on the salvation of Christ and Christ alone. And let me tell you, no matter how attractive and beautiful that is, you're going to live in a world where many people go the opposite way. We don't make them our enemies. We don't hate them. We don't throw rocks after them as they walk away. We run after them as they walk away. And we try our best to let them know, this is who I was born. But this is what I found. And this is what I found. And this is what I found. And this is the God that wants to find you too. Man, what a beautiful 7 verses at the end of David's life. I know you're sitting here thinking he's about to close in prayer, but wait, we haven't filled in a single blank. They go fairly quick because I just want to wrap up what he did in our lives today. You see, finding our big picture, our final words, like David's final words, will either be about people in God or people in regrets. That's it. Our final words, I promise you one day, your final words and thoughts are always going to be about people. For going on 34 years now, I've been doing this job. I had privilege of being involved vocationally in ministry. There's no way I can begin to count the amount of homes and deathbeds, memorial services I've been a part of in people's lives. Hundreds and hundreds. And every time I'm called, every time I get to visit home, the privilege of standing with the family and watching a loved one take a last breath, those last words, those last days, you know what it's about? It's about people, 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 people. We've all heard it said before, but man, I've lived it. No one wants to go, oh, I got to get to work next week, or I left emails undone, or there was another bid that had to be turned in, or there was another job I need. No, those are things we do vocationally to keep our life going. But when you look back at the end of your life, when you see the big picture, everyone talks about people. And in that conversation, it's only one of two things. It's either people and God, or it's people and regrets. That's the big picture. Right now, you and I are just trying to put the pieces together, one after another after another. But I promise you, we read David's last words. I promise you, church, it's going to be our last words. At the end of our reign and rule, I hope and pray to God we have some moments of clarity before we pass, not a tragic accident. And if you do, I promise you, because I've seen it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, it's going to be about people. Who's gathered with me? What about those that know the Lord? What about those that don't know the Lord? And it's going to be filled with people and what God has done in our life. And David gets to write, I'm number 8. I'm Ocho from a peasant farmer. Look what God did, God did, God did, God did. And let me tell you the salvation that's coming to people through this family and what God has done. That's his last words. And if we have people in our lives and we don't have the right picture in mind of our usefulness and importance in the kingdom here, our last things are going to be about people and regrets. People. And what we should have done, what we could have done, who we could have been with, who we should have spent, who we should have shared with. And in our line of work, we see it on a weekly basis. So how do we right now, with the life that you and I have left, say, okay, so here's how we arrange it. Now I know the puzzle. Now I know the picture. How do I put this together so I don't end a life in regrets? And that's what I just want you to write down. There's 3 things we have to know to start with the end in mind. If you want to do the maze and start the finish line first, because it's easier. You want to be able to put the Legos together, you got to have the instructions and know what I'm building. You got the puzzle pieces, you better have the picture out so you know what you're doing. So what are the 3 things we need to know to make sure our life is not going to be a life based on regrets? Number 1 is simply this. It's who we are. Who we are. I've said it so many times, you should already have it in your brain, but who we are depends on whose we are. Who we are depends on whose we are. Which way? You guys can laugh. Spelled, okay. That's why I use the big pieces. Big pieces, folks. This is just getting better and better. That's why I use the big pieces, folks. Who we are depends on whose we are. Because if we truly understand there's a creator that made us, if we truly understand that we were knit together in our mother's womb, just like Psalms 139 says, if we truly understand that God knew our days and purpose before we were even born, if we truly understand that, then who we are comes down to a couple of things. It's this unique combination of our personality, gifts, and passions. Our personality, our gifts, and our passions. This, by the way, the 3 things, this is what's going to separate our calling from our career. So many of us, when we start putting together puzzles, we think, okay, what's my education? What's my bent? What do I want to study? What do I learn? Where I want to work? That's your career. Everyone has a career. We talked at the men's conference. Anyone can do your career. No one on earth can do your calling. For you to understand, why am I here? What's my importance? What is my significance? The first thing you have to understand is you were made for a purpose, uniquely. And that's going to be a combination of our personality, our gifts, and our passions. You're the only person on earth that has uniquely what you have in each and every one of those areas. You're it. Well, there's a lot of people that can do your job. There's no one else that can do your calling, because your calling is going to come down to, how am I wired? How do I do this? It's going to come down to, secondly, what we do. So it's who we are and then what we do. And what we do is a combination of our unique daily task, demographics, and circumstances. What we do is a combination of our daily tasks. This is what we do. What do you mean? Do you have a career? Okay, so you go to work. What are you daily doing? Are you stay at home? Are you a parent? Are you a student? Are you live in the barracks? Are you in military? Where are you? We all have daily tasks. We all have demographics. It's not just what I'm doing, it's where I'm doing it. My calling is going to be relegated to Southern California. Right now, my calling is greater because we filmed this and now it's going out beyond just Southern California. But for the most of us, our calling is going to be in our demographic. It's what you're doing here, but if what you're doing here you did in Des Moines, Iowa, you would have an impact in Des Moines, Iowa. If you were in Jacksonville, Florida, then your calling would be in Jacksonville. So we start knowing, God, how did you make me? How did you put together? What are my passions? What are my desires? What are my unique gifts and combination of that? And then, God, where do you have me? And what am I doing? But also my circumstances. This is a tough one. When I have had the incredible privilege to sit with men and women from North Coast who say, let me tell you how I'm handling stage 4 cancer. These are my unique circumstances. I'm still having a specific area. They've changed some of my daily tasks. No one signed up for this. But if this is the hand I get to play for the kingdom, let me tell you how my unique gifts, personality is going to be displayed in this area and how I handle this and how I walk through this. Our circumstances being put in maybe some real trying times or toxic situations where God never desired any of us to go through bad days, bad problems. God's desire, the first 2 pages of Genesis, is for us to live in a perfect life, perfect relationship with him and others. Page 3, sin has come into our world. A choice to not walk with God. And because of that, we live in a broken world. And God says, now you're going to have a unique set of circumstances. This is going to be part of your calling. Your calling is going to be unique than anyone else in the world. Once again, remember, because of your unique gifts, passions, and personalities, and now you, wired that way, are uniquely have your daily task, where you do that, in what neighborhood, in what building, in what school, in what barracks, and the unique circumstances that you're in. See, that's what people are looking at. When the Bible calls us to be salt and light, we got to get specific with that. For so many Christians, they go, oh yeah, I love everyone. You don't love everyone. Listen, you're not supposed to love everyone. You couldn't possibly meet everyone if you met 100,000 people every day for the rest of your life. You're not going to meet everyone. You're not going to love everyone. You're supposed to love someone. And you're going to love them based on your unique passions, gifts, your personality, and where you are, your daily task, and your circumstances that you're in. That's all unique to you. See, what we're doing is we're starting to put together, well, my personality, I'm kind of a flaming extrovert. I'm a loudmouth. I always talk. I can't sit still. I'm ADHD, and God goes, great, I made you that way. That's a huge part of your puzzle. Oh, really? Yeah, when people get upset at me because I never stop talking and I always tell stories. And he's like, good, I want you to have a career where you're the only one talking. I'm like, you can get paid for that? They used to set me outside of the class for that. No, Chris, you're going to get paid for that. No, it's probably a job I'm not going to like. I don't like doing things the same way every time. I don't like following a leader. I don't like staying in line. He goes, that's good. You're going to have a type of career where you can get outside the line. You can do things differently. You can do things other than what you grew up thinking that it was supposed to be. So that was God-given? He goes, yeah, that was God-given. I'm like, they tried to beat that out of me growing up. And he goes, and they didn't succeed because I put that in you. Now, where you are and what you're doing, that's going to be your circle of influence. And where you are in life, and the challenges you face in life, and the successes you have in life are going to give you another lens by which people can see what the Bible says we're supposed to be light. We're supposed to be salt. So we take us and we take who we are and we take what we do and then we combine it with how we do it. How we do it. And how we do it is what separates our calling from our career. How we do it. See, when we take our unique personalities, the way God made us, where God has put us, and now how we do it, when I walk daily practicing the presence of this God, when I know that I am put on earth to show him, when my life is supposed to bring glory to him, when I simply manage his things, if that's my end picture in mind, if that's what I'm building and working for, then I promise you along the way, I'm going to have interactions with people that are going to see that's different. I'm going to have interactions with people that I'm going to know in my heart, that person has my name on it. I'm going to have interactions with people that I know that is a God thing in my life because I am walking, putting the right pieces together. God, this is how you made me. God, this is what you've given me to do. And God, it's yours. So daily, God, where do I glorify you in this? Daily, God, how do I manage this as if it was your company, your paycheck, your bank account, your vocation? God, how do I do that? And I promise you, when we do that, walking with the presence of God, you're going to find the Spirit of God has everything he needs in your life to overflow in the lives around you. And this is where we have that impact. This is where we get to the end of our life and say, look, I was a nobody, born of a nobody. And let me tell you what God did, what God lifted me up, what God anointed in my life, the salvation that God allowed me to be a part of and then to share with others. Let me tell you the plan of God in my life. How can we get there? Because it's a pronoun issue. We never saw it as my life. It was his. And when we're living life as if it's not ours but his, the Spirit of God has everything he needs to work in us and through us. See, at the end of our day, weeks, months, sit back and go, look what he did there. And look who he brought in here. And look what God did with his stuff this month. See, if we don't start with that picture in mind of what is our purpose, who are we supposed to glorify, then I promise you, we've just got a Ziploc bag full of all kinds of pieces. Some are supposed to be part of our life and others aren't. We're just trying to put them all together. We're just trying to go through life and grab things and wonder if they fit or not and wonder if they make sense. And this feels good, but it only felt good for a while. Now I'm going to try to connect this one on this. And I don't know what I'm here for. And if I don't know what I'm here for, I'm going to fill in that blank with my own assumptions. Well, I'm here to get the best life I can. I'm here to make the most money I can. I'm here to be as successful as I can. And I look at that and go, where was that? Where was that on the box? Huh. Where was that on the box? That you were given this life for your giants, for your kingdom, for your success. Kid, you forgot the picture. And when you forgot the picture, you forgot what you were putting together. You see, these three things will have us in a place of significant impact for his kingdom that no one else will ever have. These three things are going to have us in a place of significant impact for his kingdom that no one else can have. You have a role in God's kingdom that only you can play. Well, Chris, there's a lot of Christians in the world. No. Not who you are. Not with your unique skill set, not where you were born, not with your family history, not with your family of origin, not with your passions, not with your desires, not the way God uniquely put together your personality. No one has that. And no one's doing the daily tasks that you're doing. No one's going to where the places you're going to daily. No one lives exactly where you live with the people surrounding you. No one's going through the circumstances that you've been given right now in life. That's unique to you. And God's now put you in that circle of influence. That's where you are king or queen. That's your reign to say, God, where is salvation being used here? You see, all of us should have some people in mind to say, if my life left the earth today, another Christian would have to step in for this guy, her, and him. Because you're the one there. You're there. If you left the earth today, what gap in the big puzzle of God's kingdom is someone else going to have to come up with a piece for? Because he has you in the family, in the friendships, in the sphere of influence and significance. You. That's the role you play in the kingdom. And may you and I be able to sit down at the end of it and say, man, look what God did, look what God did, look what God did in spite of the stuff that I pulled and that I did. The pandemic, I even hate using that word anymore. I just want it to be a distant bad memory. But one thing it did is it pulled the plug on so much hurry, busyness in my life. It put a pause button on my life. We canceled 32 flights over the next year and a half. The events that were canceled, the traveling that was canceled, everything. And it gave me some time for the first time in really my adult life in the last probably 25 years, just to breathe. And I started thinking about, what am I doing all this for? It didn't take long for me to come up with, in this next decade, there's really 3 things I desire. There's 3 things that I think God has given me to do with my personality, my gifts, where I'm at, and how I'm doing it. And number 1, at the end of this next decade, I want my wife to say he was the greatest husband I've ever heard of. Therefore, I think he was the greatest husband that ever existed. That's a pretty high bar, gentlemen. I know, but that's what I want. That's what I want. Number 2, I want all 3 of my kids to say, best dad ever. Best dad. Dude wasn't perfect by any means. But there's no way I would have traded our dad for any other dad I've ever heard of. And number 3, I want a church in Southern California to say, we were really, really glad he was our pastor. We're better for that, not worse. That was it. That was it. With who I am, what God made me to do, with where he put me, and with how I'm supposed to do it. Those 3 things came pretty easy. That was my picture. That was my puzzle. And then I stepped back and looked at my calendar and thought, so why am I doing this, or this, or this, or this, or this? We started saying no to almost everything outside of North Coast. Why? Any conference I said no to, you know what I found out? It still happened. Any event I didn't go to and speak at, you know what happened? The event still happened. Any church I said I can't come and speak at, you know what happened? They still had church services. But I was going to be gone from Amy and the kids in North Coast during that time. And if that's my picture, then why am I saying yes to these things? Now listen, this is just for Chris Brown. There are people that go, hey, my picture is to travel and to speak and to do that. And I'm like, great. Why are you here? How has God made you? Where has he put you? And when I read the word, and we're supposed to be salt and light, an impact on the world around us, see who I am, where I am, and how I do it has real people attached to it. Your life has that as well. That is my purpose. That is my calling. And then I can start erasing all the other junk and all the other pieces that I tried to fit on my board, and they weren't part of the picture. And I love reading David. When I look back, it was God, God, God. He had an amazing work of justice and righteousness for me to live my life in accountability in front of him. And unfortunately, not everybody's going to want to make that choice. And you and I get to be now part of that plan to try to bring salvation to others. I can't save them, God does. But I can show them a picture that looks like an incredible sunrise on a cloudless morning, when just enough rain comes to allow the ground to produce the harvest that I want it to. Let me encourage you, church. Whatever piece you're in right now is just a small part of a big picture. Don't let Satan tell you this is your life, and because of this you're done. No. That's just a piece of the frame. God's going to build something amazing on this when you and I seek to start with the end in mind. His kingdom, not ours. His life, not ours. His finances, not ours. And what I get then is his joy, his purpose, his worth, his value, not mine. Page 2. God said, let me give you a beautiful picture. You were created to walk with me and bring glory to me. Page 3. That picture was shattered. And we've been trying to piece things together ever since. So today, let's call it page 4. Let's start with the picture back in mind and the choices of what we do and how we build on it. gets a whole lot easier than just octopus. Father, thank you for who you are and what you've done, for allowing us to live in this incredible country with such great freedom. God, may you give us your wisdom to know how to use that freedom and to exercise it this week. But God, may you give us a greater picture of your kingdom, not ours. The role we're supposed to play in bringing salvation, light, and salt to everyone. But more specifically, God, those specific names that you've put in our circle of influence. Who is it, God, that we are supposed to be salt and light to? May we find that calling in the midst of our career. May we find that purpose, God, in the midst of your kingdom. God, may we prayerfully consider who it is you have us here for. What are we supposed to be doing? May your Spirit meet us in those prayers and shed light on where we are supposed to be light. And then may you give us your grace and strength to walk that through. In Jesus' name, amen.
Another incredible message this week as we're rounding out this series. And just want to encourage you, oftentimes I hear Chris speak and it's like, wow, that was an amazing message. Just be reminded, it's not about the person who delivers the message, it's about the content. It's about Jesus. What does he want to do in and through your life this week? Thanks for joining us. We look forward to having you back next time.